Are you actioning?
Actually actioning?
Are we on? Hello, testing. 1, 2, 3. Are we on? Oh,
Makeup.
yeah, makeup, quickly. I'm feeling some dark spots. So here we are at Eurekan Art with my pal Ken Foggo. Thank you for having us.
Well, certainly.
So we're on the trail on the James Yale Legacy Project, and I think I met you when you first moved here.
Pretty soon.
Was that so? One of the reasons, besides that, I'm really glad you're back in my life, is that I'm trying to find James's lost art, and so every week Melanie and I post a new piece of found art, and there's always these clues. I mean, we're like Nancy Drew, you know, like someone calls like last week, you know, I have this painting of that was a watercolor called Lady Nautilus. Well, I'd never seen that, so we went to this lovely woman's house, Mary Sullivan, and it's just so amazing. So I've always seen pictures of Lady of Chalcedony. I didn't even know it was this big of a painting. And so you represented James.
Yes. In fact, just a few months after we opened, we got James to give us some paintings on consignment and some prints. And so this wasn't the first one, but we got several and ended up selling several. And this was one that Nancy really liked. We got it later, and I think I bought it in maybe 2006.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's from 1997, so it had been around for a while, but Nancy really liked it, and I liked it. It was, it's a little different than, a lot different than most of what James painted.
Right.
It's not photorealistic.
No.
And so he said he really had trouble painting this painting because it just wasn't his usual way of doing it. And I've seen him paint. I saw at one time he called it the unnamed falls, but then he called it I forget, Sneed.
It was Sneed's Creek
Sneed's
Falls.
Creek Falls. And but anyway, I watched him paint part of that.
You did?
Oh yeah, he'd take a photo and he'd cross hatch and to squares, and he would paint a square at a time. As he came to the colors he needed for those areas, he would paint parts of it in. So he had like the border around it, and he had a center part with the water. And whenever I went and saw him paint, that's what he was painting on.
I love that. You know, he would grid that out because, and that's where I was going a minute ago, is that he didn't have art. He's self-taught. He just had engineering and drafting in high school in Missouri. And so it was all through nature that he had that fine-tuned, you know, really getting down to the nitty-gritty where he sees the wart on your nose, you know. But from his grandmother to having a mentor named Arthur Bowles that was with the Chicago Art Institute, and he was a good friend of Picasso's and Frank Lloyd Wright. His little man lived in a little house. James took some classes from him at, I think it was Joplin Community College, and Arthur told him, like, stop going to school. And he said he learned more from Arthur as an apprentice, you know, working in the rose garden, hearing stories of the business and the intrigue and all that than he could have learned, you know, in a million years. But the idea of how he was painting and the way he grids it off, that photo he was working from was from our daughter, Allison, and Phil. James, with his MS, he could not go hiking anymore. And so she came back with these beautiful pictures of Sneed's Creek Falls. And you're holding this little thing right there, and on my Nancy Drew thing, I'm like, bing, because we're trying to find out where, to build his catalog, where some of these paintings ended up. Okay. And how people feel about them and why they purchased them. And Sneed's Creek Falls, last 2 weeks ago, I got another call from some people in Virginia, like they wanted Sneed's Creek Falls, you know. So I am in a big swirling bubble of synchronicity, and you are welcome, my friend.
Caught up in the eddy.
I know we're in. Sometimes it's an emotional eddy for me, but eventually, you are such a great resource to maybe, contact people, and I don't want his paintings. I just want to be able to make sure they're photographed well, because, when we did the artery, his idea was to create the Master's Apprentice Preservation Foundation, where these young artists today with their technology could help document elder artists and disabled artists' work, because there were not computers in their time. James was a great photographer, but a lot of times he doesn't have great photos of his artwork. So it's amazing that did you ever see him paint anything besides Sneed's Creek? Did he paint here?
No, he always painted in the studio. But I wanted to, somewhere in here, I have a bill of sale on those, and I went through part of my files. I'm not sure, but I found 3 of them.
I love that.
So,
well, I mean, it's just, and time is passing, but, Melanie is my cohort in all of this, and we, every week, we pick up the phone, I pick up the phone, and I, field questions, interviews, and here we are once a week, meeting you again. So I can get all that from you in due time. But thank you so much, just letting me stand in front of this. I love her because in 1997, and in our bedroom, there's this big painting, and it is, he was working with Bill Underwood at the time. In fact, Bill Underwood is the one that donated the bust of Faye Jones. It's all, every week, there's an interconnection of each person we interview. And so Bill took the chalcedony crystal and blew it up, under a microscope a million times, so it looks like this big eruption of blue. And then James took that and turned it into these little hobbit houses. So it became this other fantasy piece. So I love this, ties into that period, his blue period. I mean, it's just beautiful. I was kind of going with that somewhere, and I don't know where I ended up when I started telling you about that. But that, that again is he's self-taught. And so, I mean, there's that really, that hyper-realism, but I love, this one. It is really different than any of his paintings. Tell me about Nancy.
well, Nancy, we met, I think she was probably 15 when I first met her.
Really?
She was a younger sibling of Danny McElhannon, and so that's how I met her. And she seemed like she was interested in me at one time, but there was 7 years difference, and that was like I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like she was mature, or I don't know. It just wasn't the time.
Right.
And so I ended up, I did get married, and then that didn't work out. And so later one time, anyway, she called me up and said, would you be interested in going out, seeing me again? And of course, by this time she was in her 20s. And so we did. We dated for a while, and then we ended up coming up here and getting married.
So she saw something in you from the very beginning.
Yeah, she I don't know.
Yeah, I always adored her. Your family, the minute I moved here, you were kind of in and out of my life. That's when I was an undercover waitress. And I had moved here, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I had some production skills, and so I took these crazy jobs, and I'd watch all of you to see where am I going to fit in. And you guys were always game for anything. So when I had the lucky fortune to move across the street from Gwen Bennett, who's an artist. And so at that time, Eureka was doing all this crazy yard art, May Fine Arts. And Gwen and I were just relentless, trying to win the yard art competition. We we finally came up with one idea called the Snowtheed Gallery. That was spelled Snothead Gallery. And so we worked on this for like 6 months in advance, because this is an artist town. And we put a little ad in the paper that Dita and Vita Snowtheed are going to open a gallery in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and they have galleries in Milan, Toronto, and Santa Fe. And so the buzz was in town about, call us if you're interested, because what we're trying to do is turn my yard into the Snowtheed Gallery, and we had over 35 artists that did an installation, and all their artwork was for sale, and it went to people helping people, and you guys were part of that.
Well, I remember, I don't remember if there was a theme or...
There was no theme.
Okay.
You could do whatever you wanted, because it was everything from paintings to mobiles to installations. And one of the things that we did was an installation, because you were on planning for a long time, the planning department. Well, they were always after me because I moved here and I didn't understand historic district, and I had 2 dogs, and I had brought a dog run, which was like, you can't do that. And so I weaseled keeping it for May Fine Arts, and we did this whole installation called Birth of an Art Patron, which was really cool. So you had to go through this building and you couldn't get out. You were basically being birthed through this pink faux fur.
Yes.
And you're trapped in my dog run until you wrote a check to people helping people. And you said you did that.
Yes, I actually went through with Mary Fly, and it was kind of strange, because later on I figured out that I had met her years before in Lexington. She had sang, and I think played maybe the ukulele and perhaps the oboe, that with a band that she was, I guess, enthralled with one of the members, and
right.
And so they let her get up there on stage while they were taking a break. It was really odd that we would just meet again, but this
and
is
you met
Eureka.
again where you're being birthed as an art patron together.
True.
And then it was funny because I did not know James Yale at that time, but he was one of the people. There was about a couple hundred people that came through our yard, and all the art was bought. And that was the first, encounter I think that I really had, being in the same airspace as him too. So, kind of one thing led to another, and then Mary ended up playing music at our wedding, and you were at our wedding, and the rest is just a wonderful dream. Just before we sign off today, I would like to say, one of the things that we're always looking for when people see these interviews is like they may have another part of the story. They may know who this model is, or where a certain painting's gone, or they may know somebody that has a James Yale. So one thing I'd like to do in 2026 is that when in the 60s and 70s, James did all these pastels. He'd be at art fairs and maybe even his gallery, doing pastels. There's over 2,000. And so I want to do like if your Aunt Betsy, had a pastel done by James Yale, would you contact us? Because I see one day, them being a museum where there's just a whole wall where they're all framed in. And he used to get emails all the time. It's like, I just want to let you know, after all these years, we treasure, the picture of Aunt Betsy that you did, at the art fair. So really quick, your relationship with James beyond, representing him as a person, as a friend in your life. What was that like?
Well, he was really straightforward. If he said he would do something, he'd do it.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really, I think I visited his studio once or twice. Nancy might have gone out there. It seems like she did once.
Right.
And wasn't too far, but that's what we tried to do, was go to all the different artist studios and see what they'd been working on. Some of it had 10 years of work in it, 15,
Right.
stored up on the top shelf or whatever. Yeah, and James was, he was fairly business, but a nice guy.
Yeah.
Good to talk to.
I fell for him.
Yeah.
You know, beyond, you know, this little memory lane thing, I just want to, your family was always so special to me. I mean, you were in and out of my yard and in and out of the outdoor cinema. I watched you guys have birthday parties there, and you know, here we are. You know, we're missing those special people in our lives. And I know the kids are grown, but
Yeah. Sid's living in Paris. She's been there for 7 years.
really, what is she doing?
She's a translator. She's got her own business, but she works. One of her biggest clients now is the Louvre.
Wow.
So she's translating for painting, sculpture, whatever, jewelry,
That's incredible.
all the things they have.
There's some pretty extraordinary kids I've watched, you know, grow up and go out into the world, and they're doing fantastic things. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, Eurekan art is pretty darn fabulous. It really is. I mean, it's always been amazing, but I don't know how many people come to Eureka, and I know you're going through the main drag on, you know, in the downtown area, but this gallery, I mean, Melanie, I've been playing the game, like, if we had to buy something, what is the one piece? Well, yes, but there is so much, you represent so many amazing artists.
Well, I don't know exactly how many. There's at least 150 different artists working here, but some of those it's just one because it was what really grabbed me. Is what I like the best.
Right, but there's so much variety. I mean, I'm seeing old friends' work. I'm seeing amazing, I mean, just like the ceramics that you have here. And if you are coming to Eureka Springs, I would make this a pit stop for sure. So the last thing about Mr. James Yale, you know, the third encounter I had, he had a show here, and I still didn't talk to him because I rarely go up to people, you know, that, you know, they're doing stuff, and I do have a very shy element. But I remember seeing him. I can even see what he was wearing that day, you know, when he had the show. So to be continued with that little bag of tricks of James Yale, that we will get our spy glasses out and take a look at that, and we will keep following the clues. Thank you.
Certainly.
Until our next encounter.
All right.
All right. All right. Thank you, Miss Melanie. You got to get in front